morning to everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We are supposed to start at this time. I can see a few people have joined, but I know many more are going to join us in the course of the webinar. On today's webinar, we are discussing innovation and knowledge management in our organizations. And this has been necessitated by the fact that in the wake of a global pandemic and possible economic depressions, only companies that best utilize their most valuable assets will survive. And see how knowledge management links to innovation and better products and services. To help us to tackle this particular topic is my friend, Zacharia Moseti. Zach works in the NGO world. He brings a lot of experience in data engineering with experience running over 11 years in data management. He also a wealth of enthusiasm and research in the knowledge of field management and innovation. Zach holds a degree in BSc Mathematics and Computer Science with a master's in information and in knowledge management. Together with all these qualifications, he also holds certifications in data science. So today, I believe that we are in the right hands of Zach, who is my friend, as I've said, to help us tackle and see how best we are able to integrate knowledge management and innovation within our organization. So I'll like to remind you, this particular session takes 1 hour. We'll have a presentation by Zacharia for 45 minutes and another 15 minutes where we will take up any questions that you might have. For the questions, kindly put them in the chat box on your Zoom window if you're using your phone or you're using a laptop, whichever it is, you're able to receive any questions that you could have. For myself, my name is Purity Wanjiro. I'm the director of Accurex Leadership and Management Consultants Limited. We are a HR consulting firm. We do a lot of training, just like the one we're about to do today. We also do team building. We do coaching, mentorship. We have a new department within our organization that deals with coaching, with counseling and psychology. I'm happy to tell you more details about the same at the end of this session. For now, let us give our attention, our ears to Zacharia Moseti as he takes us through this particular session. Karibu sana, Zacharia.
Thanks, Purity. I hope I'm very audible, and I hope you're keeping safe in this time of COVID-19. So without wasting time, I'm going to share my screen and go straight to the presentation. So like Purity said, this is something, not because of the COVID-19, but this is something that every organization needs to, tap into and leverage, because this is how you're going to survive or how you're going to move to the next level. And from the presentation, what I'll do, I'll start from the basics of knowledge management and build into it and show you how different organizations do the knowledge management and the effect on innovation and the products that it comes with. So the presentation is called Knowledge Management and Innovation. So these two, I'll also show how they link together and how they're applicable in the current situation and in your organization. So we're going to cover like 6 sections, and I'm going to quickly give a rundown of the sections we're going to cover. First, we're going to talk about the Entrepreneurial Revolution, just to show you where it all began and where we currently are. And secondly, I'm going to define knowledge and just give the types of knowledge so that you understand what the applications of knowledge and how it builds to knowledge management. The third is we're going to talk about the knowledge management essentials, and then we're going to talk about the benefits of knowledge management. Then after that, we're going to look at the knowledge management and innovation and how the two are connected. And I'm going to give examples that they're very clear, and we're going to look at the most elementary part of innovation and knowledge management and how you come up with better products. Then we're going to see how can you apply knowledge management in your work, and most importantly, in your life. Then we're going to have a question and answer session for your comments and feedback, which Purity is going to assist with that. I hope you're able to hear me when I was talking about the rundown of what we're going to cover. Mm-hmm. So let's start. The first slide, I'm going to talk about the entrepreneurial revolution, and this just explains where the different ages that we've had and how they came about to what currently we're calling knowledge-based economy or the concept age. So in the beginning, of course, we have the agricultural age, and this was the early stages of the agricultural farmer, where more produce was needed by the growth of the economy and introduction of more advanced tools in doing agriculture. So after that, we had the industrial age, what we call the factory worker age. And this is where there's advancement in the kind of equipment and tools and mass production of equipment. And you'd see in this industrial age, more advanced countries were developing, like automotive industry. And this is the factor of entrepreneurial is we're talking about an age where you have to come up with something that's unpredictable to solve a problem. So after the industrial age, we have the information age, or this is the knowledge worker age. And at this age is where you see an introduction of the use of information. Like even from the picture, you can see a gentleman holding a newspaper. So in this age, the information in terms of access to information, freedom of expression, this is the kind of ideology that was pushed in the information age, and this is late 90s. And when you look at in the late 20th century, but now currently what we have is a concept age. And when we talk about the concept age, it's about pattern recognition, and it's about how well are you able to connect creativity and intelligence. And there's a book by a gentleman called Daniel Pink, and it's called A Whole New World. So it explains how right-brainers will rule the future. And when we talk about right-brainers, it just means people who use their right brain, which is the more creative side of the brain, different from the left side, which is more of the systematic way of doing things. So when you talk about the entrepreneurial revolution, currently we are in the knowledge-based or the pattern understanding era. And as I explain knowledge management, you'll see how this connects to the type of age that we live in. So when it comes to knowledge, how do you define knowledge? And I'm going to start at the beginning so that you understand how when we start from the basic component of knowledge, how do we get to what now we understand as pattern recognition or knowledge management. So here we have a chart that shows different aspects of data and information. And on one side, it talks about context independence, and on the other side is understanding. So at the very beginning, we have data. And data is all about raw facts. When you talk about age, someone is 25 years of age. When you talk about height, you're 185 centimeters. When you talk about your gender, female or male, that's raw facts that describes something. Then when you have the data and they have interconnection or certain characteristics that link together, that's when you have information. So information is when you have data that is connected or interrelated in some form of way. So when you talk about the data that I've given you, when you look at the gender, when you look at the age, when you look at maybe the height, then the information there you can say that this is a young lady who's very tall. And when you go beyond the information now, you have those different types of information that make up the data, they can come together to show some pattern. So when you come to the data that I've given you, the information that I've given you, maybe you get other information about that lady. Maybe she has a passport. Maybe the passport shows stamps that she's traveled to different places. or maybe you can also see that her educational background, she's done something like international relations or tourism management. Then the understanding of those patterns will let you see that, okay, so what I can tell about this information is maybe this lady is an air hostess, or is a diplomat, or travels a lot. So that's knowledge. It's all about understanding the patterns that come from the information that is made from the data. And when it comes to wisdom, wisdom is just a deep understanding of the knowledge that you have. And I think I can't get a better example than the current situation when you talk about the COVID-19. So we have specialists like the people who specialize in virology. So they have a deep wealth of knowledge in that particular subject, and they go beyond being subject matter experts. And this takes a long time to become, like you're saying that you're beyond knowledge, you have the wisdom. So next, we're going to define knowledge from the foundation of how you come up with knowledge. And a very simple definition of knowledge is an understanding. It could be theoretical or practical of a subject. And one important thing about how you understand a subject is you can acquire it through education, or you can acquire it through experience. And the key factor here, which I want you to really put at the back of your mind, is when it comes to knowledge, it's really connected to learning. And when you talk about learning, this is also connected to innovation. And when you come to the process of getting knowledge, there's something called discovering. So when you talk about discovering, there has to be an aspect of experimentation. You build something, you measure it, then you come to the learning part. So I'll give a practical example so that you can see how this ties in. There's a lady who sells juice in the CBD. When you look at this lady, the data that she has to deal with is the ingredients that go to the juice and the different types of glasses that she uses, the place that she does her business. So once this lady has that data and is doing her selling of the juice, then at the end of the day, she'll realize that there's a particular flavor that it really moves fast. And then she'll realize that those kind of ingredients, what can she mix together? Like, for example, people would like a blend of one flavor with another. So when it comes to that lady, after a week or after a day's work, she'll have some insight into where she needs to improve. That's knowledge, because she got the information from experience. So I hope that kind of gives a deeper understanding of the simple word knowledge, and we're going to build on knowledge and see how is this knowledge managed. So we're going to talk about the different types of knowledge. I mean, when it comes to the different types of knowledge, I want you to have this thing in mind. When you talk about, for example, how to bake a banana bread. You might not know how to bake a banana bread, but there's a way that you can get information or that knowledge, and this is called explicit knowledge. So explicit knowledge just means knowledge that is tangible and can be described in a very formal way or a systematic way. Just in the example of a banana bread, you know how to, first you have the ingredients, then you put this particular ingredient, you mix it up, then you build towards baking the banana bread. And this type of explicit knowledge is stored in books or can be information systems in a computer, organizational documents. Like, for example, when you talk about SOPs, standard of procedures, or any other workflow documents that explains the procedures. And the good thing about explicit knowledge, it's easily transferable from one person to another. And in organizations, it can be transferred through training or induction, where someone is given the particular document that has the information. Now, the second type of knowledge is called tacit knowledge. And when I'm explaining tacit knowledge, in the back of your mind, have the example of how to run like Eliud Kipchoge. this kind of knowledge is intangible. It's very hard for you to see because it's ingrained in someone's mind. And it's acquired through experience or what you call operational learning. Like example, when you're working. And it's very hard to transfer, but that does not mean it's not important to capture this knowledge. So there's a way Eliud Kipchoge runs. There's a technique in the way he moves his hands or his legs or how he places his foot on the ground as he runs. That's the kind of knowledge we're talking about, tacit knowledge. And even for Eliud, it would be very hard for him to explain that kind of knowledge because sometimes there's something called muscle memory where once he's starting to run, it kicks in inside his brain. So he has to be conscious and see, this is how this particular knowledge I have, I can capture it and share it with my teammates. So as I've explained from the beginning, the data, the information, and coming up to knowledge with examples, I'd like to you can go to the chat and just, we talk about knowledge management. The word management is very familiar to us, but when you talk about knowledge management, I want you to go to the chat and, Purity will keep tabs of this. The first thing is, number one, is the term knowledge management familiar to you? So if it is familiar to you, put one, then you say yes. Or if it's not familiar, say no. Then number two, we have a question. Have you heard of the concept of knowledge management? And do you know what it means? So you can say two, then you say yes, or you can say no if you've not heard of the concept. Then the third one, do you know the link between knowledge management and innovation in your organization? So number three, you'd say yes if you know the link between the two, and no if you don't know the link between the two. And as we proceed, we'll see how now what a lot of people understand and what they don't understand, and how better we can explain the word knowledge management. So when it comes to the word knowledge management, I'm going to define it with it and go back to the same example of a lady who runs a juice stand, so we can clearly understand how can you, from the elementary way, do knowledge management. So from the definition, knowledge management is a process of creating, storing, using, and sharing the knowledge and information in your organization. So a lot of people are familiar with management. It's about how do you utilize the resources that you have at your disposal in your organization or in your business. So when it comes to knowledge management, it's the same concept. How are you managing the knowledge? And when you look at knowledge, the best way to manage it is first you create it, then you store it, then you share it, and you preserve it. When it comes to preserving the knowledge, is it available to other people? And now I'm going to go back to the example of the lady with the juice. So this lady already has experience and has the kind of knowledge that tells her this is the best product that moves. But how does that lady move from that particular type of knowledge to now the next level, which is knowledge management? So these are the assets that he has. She knows that this particular flavor moves more than the other flavors. Of course, she'll go to the market and get those flavors. But just think through this process with me. What if she does this? What if at the end of the day, she has a record? She can use very simple tools like maybe Microsoft Excel and record on this particular day how many flavors of this particular type who bought that flavor. Then let's go deeper. Then she noticed on those particular days, which day of the week did these particular flavors move. And after that, now she goes and looks at the weather. What was the weather at that particular time that this particular flavor of juice moved? And even deeper, she can actually look at the environment where she sells this juice. Does she have a lot of colleges and universities or the working class? And what are the schedules of these working people? Do they go for lunch outside or within the compound? So those are simple knowledge management practices that she can incorporate. And I think you can agree with me, by 3 months, she'd be able to have a deeper insight on which products can she move better at which particular day and to which particular demographic that she has. And she can even go deeper and get feedback from her clients. Like what if she adds something like chia seeds to her flavors? With people who are health conscious, go more for the product. So that's a simple example of how you define knowledge management. So I like to quickly go back to the chart. I see a lot of people, some saying yes to both the 3 questions, some saying no to both 3 questions. Some are familiar with knowledge management. They've had the topic, they know the definition, but they don't know how it connects to innovation. So you can continue giving your feedback, and we're going to look at the data. And I'm happy that everyone is participating. And most of I'm yet to see someone who knows all the 3 of it from the.
There is. I've seen someone who knows the 3 of them. Who was this? This is Archives. He or she answered yes to the 3. Then there's Catherine Waisiko, also has yes to the 3 of them.
Good.
So, yeah.
Good. So now, when it comes to knowledge management, we're gonna go to the next step, which is understanding the essentials for knowledge management. It's very important when you define knowledge management. We know that the players that are very important for knowledge management to occur. When we come to essentials, there are 3 things. There's a pictorial here that shows the 3 essential factors that are tied to knowledge management. And in the middle is something very important, organizational performance. So when look at the first one is people. And people are just the people who are involved in the process of creating that knowledge and also sharing that knowledge. And the people are very key because they're the ones who will do the process of learning. Second, essential of knowledge management is the processes. So the different processes that are involved in the process of creating that knowledge and also sharing that knowledge. And the third one is technology. Technology gives the tools that enable you to, one, even create that knowledge, share that knowledge, and also store that knowledge so that it can be used by other people for future use. And there's a lot of research on how companies, if you focus on one area of the essentials and neglect the other, there is an effect on organizational performance. Because a lot of people might think it's important to focus more on the technology and neglect the people. And a lot of people might say, let's focus on the people and the technology, but neglect the fact that there are different processes that help even in the process of creation. So quickly, I'm going to go through the benefits of knowledge management from what we understand what knowledge management is and where it starts. So the first one is organizational efficiency. And there's something called enterprise content management. In simple terms, enterprise content management is how do you manage the information that you have as an organization or as an individual or as a business. There's a very good example. If it takes you more than 5 seconds to access a document in the database or how you store your documents, then don't look at it as just 5 seconds. Look at it, what if you have 20 colleagues in your organization or 30 or 100? Then that's 5 seconds wasted by 20 colleagues just accessing one document. When you extrapolate and calculate how long that takes for the year or for the month, then you'd find that because there's a lot of study that has actually done empirical study of this kind of data. It might take you weeks just to access a document. So you know how much value you're losing as an organization. So the second benefit is also innovation and creation of unique products and services. And this I'll be able to explain further when we talk about how innovation links to knowledge management. But the third one is knowledge management ensures that there is retention, especially when you have staff retiring or resign. And this is important because once the organization loses that knowledge that already maybe it did not store or did not manage, then there's a bigger impact on the number of products or how you serve your market niche. Then now is increase employee productivity and sense of purpose. And this is important because of the factor that knowledge management is about learning. So if someone learns, then they have a way of feeling that they have sense of purpose, sense of belonging. And a perfect example of this is a company like Netflix. Netflix have very robust knowledge management strategies that make employees feel like they have a self-purpose. Then the last one is knowledge transfer. And there's an aspect of best practices and benchmarking that is done by companies that have knowledge management structures in them. And this could be companies that are big, like KPMG, that have different different branches in different countries. So you leverage on the in the different knowledge from the different industries that are unique but can build to the whole organization.
Hello. I think we have lost Zacharia. Let me just find out. Maybe his presentation has dropped. All right, he has a power surge on his end, but he's joining in less than a minute from now. All right, as you continue waiting for him to be able to join, if you have any questions, remember to put them on our chat box. We should be able to cover those questions at the end of this particular session. Also, if you are interested in this presentation, the PowerPoint, also drop us your email address. We are going to share with you the presentation at the end of this particular session. So keep hanging on. Just for a few minutes, he joins us back. Thank you. If you have any questions, kindly just send them to the chat box. We are able to answer them shortly, just before we finish this particular session. Thank you for bearing with us. Yes, he's back.
Sorry about that. Just had a power surge and it knocked down my internet. So I'm gonna share and go back to where we were.
All right.
So I was talking about the last benefit that I'm going to talk about in this presentation is best practice. And like I said, it's important for different organizations to leverage on the different knowledge assets that they have, even if they have branches or different offices. So I'm going to talk about now how knowledge management links to innovation. And a lot of people talk about innovation, and most of the time you find that the conversation about innovation is usually related to technology or tech stuff. But innovation goes deeper than that, because for you to have innovation, it has to start from the people who have the knowledge. And one of the definitions that I found to explain the best way is that innovation is a new idea that is creative and is applied to bring about a better solution to a problem. So these are the things that we're going to look when talking about innovation. There has to be a creative process, and there has to be a problem that's being solved. And when it comes to it being new, Some companies define innovation, it has to be 3 years new, or a year new, or 6 months new. So why innovation? So innovation is vital to any business organization survival, because when it comes to innovation, you find that you need, as a company, at the end of the day, to be able to make sales, regardless of which industry. Even if it's in the NGO world, you have to sell a product to your beneficiary, or you have to sell a concept or a project to the donor. So another thing is, innovation deeply depends on proper knowledge management. And as we saw, when it comes to the knowledge that an organization has, when you use the knowledge management essential program, we look at how do you come up with innovation when you combine the people, the processes, and the technology. Also, innovation creates unique products, and this makes an organization stand out from the competition. There's something called brand legacy. This just means your organization stands out from any other organization. See an organization like Coca-Cola, that's brand legacy. And when it comes to those companies that are going to stay in the industry for long, this is what they target. How can they come up with unique products? And there's a very good section on CNN that says Club 100. It talks about companies that have been around for 100 years. And it's all about the unique products they offer to the market. So the other thing is, knowledge management enables the staff to be motivated. And this is in what we call continuous learning. And this is the foundation of knowledge, as explained when it comes to the process of what do you have, how do you leverage that, and how do you continuously learn in that experience, then you gain the innovation from that knowledge management. So I took a few examples just to show the process of knowledge management and innovation, and how it brings about products that are very unique and they have an impact on the sales of the organization. And there's one of the best benchmarks for innovation is how good is that company doing in the current age, which we call the knowledge-based age. And there's a company called Statista that they do analysis of the most valuable companies or the best doing companies every year. And it's no secret that when you look at their report for last year, out of 100 most valuable companies in the world, top 7 are knowledge-based, or they combine knowledge management and innovation. And in the setting that they appear on the list, the first one is Apple, the second one is Microsoft, the third one is Amazon, the fourth one is Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google. Then the fifth one is Berkshire. Berkshire Hathaway is a company owned by Warren Buffett, and they invest in stocks and they invest in so many things, and they look at data, they look at how these companies leverage on the innovation that they have. Now, the sixth one is Facebook, and everyone is familiar that Facebook really, the business that Facebook is in data, and how that data connects with the different products that they can leverage with marketers. And now the seventh one is Alibaba. And Alibaba, what they do is they sell products, and they just like Amazon, they depend on data and feedback from all these users, and they use something called artificial intelligence, where they look at what data they have in their database and how does it link to what, when it comes to the goods that you've ordered. They look at the sequence of, if you order this good, you might like this good, because now there's something called machine learning, where the computer has algorithms that understands what the user likes. So I'm going to go and I picked like 4 examples that there's a clear link between the knowledge management and the innovation. And the first company I'd like to give an example is, there's a company called Continuum. And this is a Boston-based consultancy company. And when you look at Continuum, the product that they have is it touches most of you in one way or another, but you might not know about this. So what Continuum did, they came up with a product called the Dream Cup. The Dream Cup is a very simple product. When you look at the Tetra Pak juice, like when you look at Del Monte juice, or when you look at Brookside milk or yogurt, they have a special cup that is attached to the box. That is what we call a Dream Cup, and that Dream Cup is a patent product that is owned by a company in Sweden. So what Continuum did is they came up with that product through a process called Knowledge Cafe. A Knowledge Cafe is a knowledge management strategy where a group of people sit together and discuss ideas in a free-flowing way. When we talk about free-flowing way, what that means is no idea is too crazy, and no idea is too stupid, and no idea is too complex. So what Continuum did, they analyzed the data that they have on how people drink from those Tetra Paks and different other ways. So how do you drink your tea? How do you drink your coffee? So they realized that there are 3 ways of drinking that tea or that coffee. So when they realized those 3 methods, they put a camera inside the boxes. And from 3 years engineering, they were able to come up with this product called Dream Cup. And you can imagine how much money that earns the company Tetra Pak from a knowledge management strategy called Knowledge Cafe. So another company I'm going to talk about is 3M, which I know most of you are familiar with 3M, especially when it comes to the tint of the car. But 3M have another company called the Post-it Note. And the Post-it Note is, most of us call it the sticky notes. The colored sticky notes that we use in the organization. That was an innovation by 3M. And the way they came up with that is a knowledge management strategy called community of practice. So community of practice is when a group of people who have the same interest in terms of an industry. It could be doctors, it could be lawyers, it could be even people in the SME, like the Jua Kali, they can have a community of practice. So what they did is they usually have something called the technical forum, where you share the products that you have and what failures or what successes did you have in that product. So there's one engineer in this company called 3M. He was trying to come up with a strong adhesive, a glue that should be used in the construction industry, but he failed. But when he failed, he came up with a very weak adhesive. So he was giving his process of how he came up with that failed product. But there's one member of that community of practice who sang in the choir and had challenges with remembering where the bookmark of where he left off the hymn, and he picked up from that and developed the Post-it Note. So you can see the link between knowledge management and how it came to the innovation and a product that really brings a lot of money for 3M. So bringing it back home, we look at Safaricom. We all know Safaricom is probably one of the biggest companies in this region that we have. Definitely one of the biggest top 100 companies in Africa. And Safaricom have very good products. We know of M-Pesa, but one of the products called Lipa na M-Pesa is as a product of how Safaricom manages the knowledge they have. And this is what we call organizational learning. Organizational learning is where you create an environment inside the organization where knowledge is shared through maybe innovation teams or people sharing the ideas in a setting where the management has deliberately set up an environment where there is learning from within and taking even outside information. And another product that Safaricom has is they have an innovative engagement called Blaze, which is a very good and innovative way of engaging the youth. And through that, the other products that come from that particular engagement. Another company in Kenya is called Trigger Foods. And Trigger Foods did something very interesting. They came up with a platform where there's food distribution. And food distribution in Africa is a big problem because you have farmers who have their products and they're undercut by cartels. And at the end of the day, we don't, as the end users, we don't get the food in time or in the best quality that we have. So Trigger Foods uses a knowledge management strategy, and this is more on the technology bit. It's called decision support systems. So this is just a big system that helps an organization feed all this data and helps them with decision making. Like, for example, when you look at the systems that they've put around, they have crates that carry food from the farmer, and it collects data and what, like, on the different routes, the quality of the food at each and every step. And this digital platform helps farmers to get paid instantly or within 24 hours when their product has been sold. So if you have any other examples that you know of, maybe from your organization or that you've read about or done research, you can go to the chat and just give those examples, and we'll look at them and see how knowledge management came about to that product. So, when you look at the different countries that embrace knowledge management, like I said before, now we're living in a knowledge management-based economy. So when it comes to countries that embrace knowledge management, this is an aspect that is pushed by the World Bank, where we talk about knowledge for development, where countries don't rely on the traditional assets that we were used to. When you talk about oil, gold, all these other minerals as the biggest earner, we're talking about now, let's focus on the knowledge. And good examples that I was able to find in my research is like the Hong Kong police. You can imagine the police force being in the front line of using knowledge management. So the Hong Kong police use a knowledge management tool called storytelling. And storytelling is, in its simplest form, just giving experiences of how you handle like specific niche areas in your organization. And for the Hong Kong police, they use storytelling, especially because they had it's a heavy metropolitan area, so they had issues with pickpockets. And the experienced police officers were able to go through storytelling process, and they used to capture this process using technology and use it for training. And this particular thing was shared even with countries like the UK, which were having a big problem with pickpockets from the gypsy community. Another example of how countries are using knowledge management and innovation is in Singapore. Now, Singapore is as a company that always appears on the index of top innovative countries in the world. And Singapore have a company called Delph, which they have automated taxis. Now, these automated taxis are self-driven taxis that use artificial intelligence and big data. And they link it to systems like the city map, where they know that the different routes that these taxis used. And one thing about Delph automated taxis is the leverage on the information that is shared, even with the taxi drivers. Because the cars, of course, have sensors, but there's an aspect of the knowledge management essential when it comes to the people. And currently, Delph automated taxis have self-driven taxis, but they have drivers within them just to give feedback to the database on what's going wrong and what's going right. And in 2012, they're going to have, 2022, they're going to have completely self-driven taxis. And I think this is going to be the first country to do that. And coming back home, we have to look at the Kenyan vision, vision of knowledge-driven economy, and Vision 2030, which was something under the Kibaki administration, was very focused on how do we leverage the different knowledge within the different sectors of the economy. And when you look at Uhuru's Big Four agenda, it talks about doing a knowledge audit of the different sectors that drive the economy, and how do we ensure there's a system that focuses on knowledge sharing within these different sectors, so that now we leverage on that data to ensure there's efficiency and there's prosperity. And something that I know all of us are familiar with is the Huduma number and e-governance. So the goal of Huduma number was to have a system where all the data that is within the country and offer the services to the parastatals are interlinked. And this is something called enterprise content management, where all this data is interlinked in such a way that if you can access one service, why do you need to have a different database or a different way of accessing same information that can be linked to the different services and the citizen needs? And this is also was enshrined in what we call decision support system, which is just how do you deliver service through a system where it has all this information and helps the government in decision making. And this is all based in a word that most of you have heard called big data. So I'm quickly going to talk about now knowledge management in terms of new careers that have come about from knowledge management. And once we say we're in the content making or pattern understanding industry, we have people called information brokers or infopreneurs. These are people who leverage their knowledge to give you a service, and that when you go to that person for information, they get some form of benefit of payment. So these are your bloggers, or what you call social media influencers, who are very active on YouTube, and they'll always focus on the number of people who come to your channel or come to your to get product from you. So corporates will partner with them because now they have an influential benefit in terms of the consumers. So we also have podcasters or people called affiliate marketers who partner with a lot of these companies. You see, like a company like Coca-Cola usually are very keen on looking at the social media influencers, especially when it comes to different products that they want to launch. And it's important that I mention when it comes to this new type of career or the session where we're talking about information brokers, it's important to know the benefit of intellectual property protection. IP protection is very important because it is one of the things that knowledge management addresses. What kind of policies are there to ensure that my IP is protected? And in the world, we have an organization that pushes for ideas or intellectual property to be protected. And this is called the World Intellectual Property Organization. So if you have a patent and you want to register it online or copyright, this is the organization that you go to. But within Africa, we have our own charter of the WIPO. It's called African Regional Intellectual Property Organization. So when you have patents within Africa and you want to register, this is the organization that you go to. And also we have within Kenya called KIPI. This is Kenya Industrial Property Institute, where they push for intellectual property laws, policies, and protections. And it's important to note that when it comes to trademarks, copyrights, and patents, there are different processes that you have to follow. And it's important, especially for the creatives in this country, to know this kind of laws and to be sensitized on how do you push for this kind of laws. And there's a lesson to be learned, especially there are two organizations in Kenya that offer a service that most of us have known for years. But even for myself, I only knew of one company that offers these services. This is the disposal of sanitary pads. A lot of people know about Rent-A-Kill, but it's very interesting to know that Rent-A-Kill was not the originator of that idea. It's a company called Sanitam Services. And you can go to the chart if any of you have ever heard of Sanitam services, because in 1999, Sanitam was the one who registered for a patent at the African Regional Intellectual Property Organization. But Rentokil went to court and said that they've already been using this product even before the patent was registered and confirmed. And this battle has been going on for the last 20 years. And it's only last year that the local tribunal in intellectual property here in Kenya dismissed the case and say Rentokil have a right to use the product, because the process of registering that patent by Sanitam did not follow the usual protocols that companies are supposed to use. So it's an interesting case that maybe you can look at if you are interested in intellectual property, and be in the know that it's important for you to register and push for it. Another company can take advantage and win in the case of Rentokil. So when it comes to application of knowledge management in your work, this is whether it's a business or whether it's your own personal life. It's important to know how do you even look at the knowledge that you have. And when it comes to organizations, there's something called organizational learning and learning organization. These two words look similar, but they have a different meaning. When it comes to organizational learning, like in the case of Safaricom, the management has a part to play in terms of creating the culture or creating the environment of continuous learning and creating the different knowledge from within or without. Without means if they have, they get consultants to come in, how are they going to work with how are they going to work with the current staff members and create knowledge and share knowledge within the ecosystem? This could be with the structures within the technology that they've implemented, and this is mostly on the culture and the environment. But when it comes to learning organization, is how do you ensure that there is continuous motivation in the process of learning? What tools do you give the organization where they can access learning? And here we talk about e-learning platforms. And for big organizations, they can get learning platforms that are very expensive or robust. But the good thing is the time that we live in, even small organizations can get those different platforms that are free. And these are called, we call them MOOCs. This is massive open online courses. And Purity can share, if you're interested, the different types of MOOCs that we have. There are so many. And also, if an organization is interested in developing tailor-made trainings for the organization, there are free open source platforms called Moodle, as an example, where they can tailor-made trainings that are specific to your organization. So the second application is also on leadership and change management. So for leadership, we talk about how is the leadership in organization. Do they offer something called psychological safety? And psychological safety is about, if you have an idea, are you able to, for example, practice in those community of practice, share your idea without feeling that you'll be judged? And psychological safety is important because this is tailor-made around companies like Google or Apple, where they give a lot of innovative ideas and they're supported by the organization. And I think Safaricom is very big with leadership in terms of making the organization a learning organization. And also when it comes to change management, how are you managing change in your organization? If someone makes a mistake, are you gonna reprimand that person? Or are you going to implement a knowledge management strategy? Like, for example, there's something called after action review. After action review, if something wrong happens, you look at the issue, like a group of 5 people, but you look at how did it happen, why did it happen, and lessons learned from that particular issue. This way is a better way than reprimand, because people will be willing to solve problems than just pointing fingers. And the third one is something called reframe approach. this is putting a pause, like, for example, what is happening now with the corona, putting a pause on everything, the way we've been doing things. Let's do a refresh. Let's think differently. And the example of the Dream Cup, that organization went and looked at data, but they were not able to come up with a solution. They looked at different cultures. How do they drink tea from Japan to Europe? But now they had to pause, reframe, and they tried a different avenue, which is the Knowledge Cafe. And they came up with the Dream Cup. Then finally, in your organization, or even as a personal person, you can, individual, you can use something called knowledge repository. This is at any time, if you have an idea, store it somewhere. You can store it on your phone using the different apps. Then you can store it in the cloud. Then look at that idea. Then share knowledge with other people. How can you build from that idea? And Kengen have a very good initiative called Ignite, which is a digital innovative platform. So you as an individual can share your ideas with Kengen, and they also look at the ideas even within the organization. And because of time, we actually finish. I'd say, where do you start? As an organization or as an individual, where do you start? Knowledge management is very broad, but the key concept is, how do you manage your knowledge? And the first thing is, do a knowledge audit. Take stock of what knowledge you have. What ideas do you have? How are you going to share it with your organization or yourself or your team? Then the second thing is, apply a knowledge management strategy. Think about the simple knowledge management strategies that we have, the community of practice, knowledge cafe, or any other strategies that involve creating knowledge, sharing knowledge, or managing knowledge. Then the third thing is, store that knowledge. You can store it on your phone, computer, have a form of repository. If it's an organization that is big, have an online platform where people can store the knowledge, share the knowledge, and access that knowledge and build on such knowledge. Then the final bit is, you have to practice, apply that knowledge, share that knowledge, and also create more knowledge. Because in that process of learning about, getting to knowledge management to innovation, it's about learning and building. Different types of strategies have been applied. For example, when you have tacit knowledge, which is in someone's head, how do you shift it to, how do you store it, or how do you capture it? There's a knowledge management strategy for that. So you can apply this in your organization or in your personal life. So these are the end of the presentation, and thank you for being with us and being keen to understand and participating. As I see, people have been participating. This presentation was on knowledge management and innovation, and the different aspects of knowledge management, like knowledge management framework and strategies, that was beyond the scope of this presentation, but are very important to consider as an organization or as a business. And also, when it comes to innovation, there are types of innovations and how you build on the different types of innovation, and you're applying this in your organization. So I'd like to thank you, and be safe. Purity?
All right. Thank you so much, Zachary. That was very informative, as so many things I had not known before, but you brought them to light. Also from the chat box, very good comments coming in. We have about 5 minutes to answer 3 questions. One is from Huawei. Wow, does a company use its knowledge to come up with new products and beat competition? That's one question. I'll also ask you another one. Is knowledge management expensive? Let's start with those.
Okay, so the first question is, how does a company, or?
Yes, how does a company, how does a company use its knowledge to come up with new products and beat competition?
That's a very good question. The first thing that a company should do is do something called a knowledge audit. And when you do a knowledge audit, you can go ahead and do something called a knowledge map, knowing where the different knowledge in the organization has. Like there's someone who's very good at writing concepts, or there's someone who's very good in communication. So the next thing is have a way of capturing that knowledge. This could be even in the simplest format. There are companies that around the dispensary where a lot of people will have to go a few times during the day. You have something called an idea box next to the dispensary, so to the dispenser. So when you go there, put your idea there and your name. Then maybe weekly or depending on the schedule, or at the end of the day, you open up the ideas and have a review. Then when you have a review, you look at the strategies that you can use to build on that. It could be a community of practice or maybe a knowledge cafe. Then you discuss those particular ideas and how can those ideas build on a product that maybe has already been started in the organization, or there was an idea, how can we build on that, that idea according to what we got from the different strategies. So that is how you build the need. There's a process, but the important thing is capture first, do an knowledge audit, got to know what assets you have. Then you come up with a strategy on capturing that data. Then the next you'll use that data and move to now coming up with innovation products.
All right. The next question was: is knowledge management expensive? And I think a continuation of the same question is: what if I have a small company or business? Is it going to be expensive?
Yeah, knowledge management is not expensive, and the reason why it's not expensive is because when we talk about knowledge management essentials, we talked about three things. We talked about the people, the process, and the technology. Currently, we're very privileged because technology is not expensive. You have your phone. That serves as technology. So what you need to do, for example, if you have a small business, and I'll go back to the, or maybe I can give an example of maybe a pig farmer. A pig farmer has a lot of overheads, but how does he implement knowledge management? First, he looks at his staff, and the people are the first building block of knowledge management. Look at his staff members. What knowledge do they have? There's one person maybe who knows the rotation of how the different peaks, the heating periods. So ask him what information he has, then capture that knowledge. It can be in an Excel or in a notebook. Then the next thing, who knows about feeds in that small organization? Then they come up with their knowledge. Then who knows about the process of maybe delivery of this, like delivery of feeds or the contacts. Then when they come together now, they look at, okay, so if we want to come up with an innovative product within our farm, let's sit together, let's look at this knowledge. Then let's form a community of practice, or let's see how can we capture a specific process. It's all about how do you learn about the knowledge that you have and how do you use it. So it's not expensive because when you look at the different knowledge management processes, they're very practical. So when you take stock of the knowledge, there's something called knowledge harvesting. When you take stock of the knowledge that you have and just document it very easily, you start seeing patterns. And that is just knowledge management. When you see the patterns, then you discover that when I am, like for example, for the pigs, when I note the different mating periods are more accurate. So when I know that I need to plan to get more feeds or more staff members, you're actually practicing knowledge management.
Okay. We have one more question from Madangani Muya. What is the difference between knowledge management and business development, which gathers data and information for development of products and services?
Yeah. So when you look at business development, what knowledge management differs from business development is the deliberate learning process of how you went through the processes and leveraging on the different specialties within the organization. You see, knowledge management, first of all, you embed it in your in your mission statement, then you come up with a framework. So when it comes to business development, it's just focusing on how we're going to balance this business development process. When it comes to knowledge management, it's deeper on how am I going to leverage on the knowledge and how that knowledge or that expertise was developed. So it's a keen focus on the processes in terms of this knowledge. How did it, let me document this knowledge, how it came about. Then I'm going to see patterns that are deeper than what a simple business development project will show you. That's my understanding of the difference between those two.
All right, thank you so much. I hope we have 1 more minute to answer Nicholas. How can you get raw data for new products that have never been sold, especially when most of your products are data-driven and sales numbers of the new product is not interesting? How long can a new product stay in the market before it gains traction?
And Nicholas, this is a very important question, because when it comes to new product, and this is the aspect of entrepreneurs, you have a new product that's not unknown in a market that is unpredictable. So when you look at the strategy applied by companies like Toyota or the Japanese, they call it a lean strategy. The first thing you do is, when you have a new product, don't go so deep into developing of the product, because there's an aspect of learning that you need to do. So the first thing is you build a very simple product. If it's a different product, you build a very simple product. Then what you do is do something called measure. After you build, you do the measure. And how do you do the measure? Identify a small population, like something you can define like a control environment. And these are people who are open to give you feedback, and they'll be willing to participate. So what you can do, you can identify small companies that will be willing to uptake that product for free. And it's important to give them for free, or what you can do is you can offer them the product and they just take up the cost of running the product. Like, for example, it's a product that will need storage. So you tell them, just take up the cost of storage, but everything else we're going to work on the product. And now the third part after build and measure is something called you learn. From the feedback, you'll be able to learn that this product needs to be improved in this area and needs to be improved in that area, or does not work in this area. And once you go through that, you get so much feedback. Then after the learning process, now you go to the next process, which is called, you give the product, there's something called minimum viable product. You give it now to a larger population. And when you give that minimum viable product, you find that you won't lose so much, but you'll gain so much in terms of you'll be able to know that with this product work if we scale it up. So for Nicholas, just focus on a strategy called lean strategy, which is you build, you measure, then you learn from it. And there's so many examples, like companies that offer, like for the gaming industry, they usually don't build something so big. Then you find out that from your side, you thought that is it important to the clients, but for them, they say, we did not need to maybe see a picture, but we needed to just see a friend of mine when I'm doing online gaming. So focus more on the build, measure, and learn experience, and your product, you'll be able to know where to launch it, and will it be viable if you scale.
Okay, thank you so much, Zachary. We come to the end of this particular presentation. I hope all of us are living here better in terms of knowledge management and innovation, and seeing how best we are able to integrate it in our day-to-day lives, especially in our organizations. I'll read a few comments just before we close. One is from Nicholas. Thank you. Wow, thank you. So practical. We have from Catherine, great presentation. From Juliet, informative session. We have for Reconnect. And Corazon, thank you for the presentation. Louisa, thank you for this presentation, very informative. There's someone who had said they really liked the example you gave of the Jewish lady. So let us take these practical examples and applications for this particular session and try to go back and apply it better in our organizations. If you've not left behind your email address, kindly do so just before we close this particular session. Also, we look forward this coming week, same time at 11 a.m. We have another session, very interesting. We'll be discussing pay cuts. How are you able to capture or manage pay cuts, as we are currently seeing a lot of them going on in our country today and also in the world across. But thank you so much for joining. These are our contact information. Make sure you drop us an email to us. Give us a call, follow us on social media, just see what you're actually doing. To Zachary, thank you so much for your time, your wisdom, your knowledge. You seem to have a very good capture in terms of understanding of this particular topic. I'm keen to see how best you are able to organize even another session just to build up on what we have discussed today. That is it from me. Thank you so much. Keeping safe. Make sure you maintain distance. You wash your hands. You wear a mask when you're going out. Until next time, thank you so much and God bless you.